The morning mist clung to Westfield High like a shroud, and Maya Chen stood at the school gate, her fingers gripping the straps of her worn backpack. This was her 5th school in 4 years, and she had perfected the art of becoming invisible. Her mother's job as a traveling nurse meant constant moves, constant goodbyes, and constant fresh starts that never felt fresh at all. Maya's dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her jeans were faded but clean, and her oversized sweater hid the lean muscle that years of discipline had built. At 17, she carried herself with the quiet grace of someone who had learned to move through the world without making waves. But beneath that calm exterior lived a secret that would have shocked anyone who bothered to look past the shy exterior. For the past 6 years, Maya had trained in Brazilian jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. What had started as a way to build confidence after a childhood of being too quiet, too bookish, had evolved into something more. She had competed in tournaments, won medals, and earned the respect of fighters twice her size. Her instructor, Master Rodriguez, had called her a natural, someone who could read an opponent's intentions before they even moved. But those days felt like a lifetime ago. After an incident at her last school, an incident her mother refused to discuss, Maya had promised to keep her head down, stay out of trouble, and just graduate. No more fighting. No more competitions. Just 18 months of invisibility until she could escape to college and start over somewhere new. The hallways of Westfield High buzzed with the familiar energy of teenage chaos. Students clustered around lockers, their voices creating a symphony of gossip, laughter, and the occasional argument. Maya navigated through them like water, slipping between conversations and avoiding eye contact. She found her locker quickly, memorized her schedule, and settled into the rhythm of being nobody special. Her first 3 classes passed without incident. Teachers introduced her briefly. Classmates glanced away with mild curiosity and then forgot she existed. This was exactly what she wanted. In AP Chemistry, she sat in the back corner, taking meticulous notes while the teacher droned on about molecular structures. In World History, she kept her eyes on her textbook while students debated the causes of World War I. In English literature, she silently read ahead while others struggled through Shakespeare. But invisibility, Maya had learned, was not always a choice you got to make. It was during lunch that she first encountered them. The cafeteria was a minefield of social hierarchies and unspoken rules, and Maya had chosen a small table near the windows, as far from the center of attention as possible. She unwrapped her homemade sandwich and opened her worn copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, hoping to disappear into Harper Lee's world. That's when she heard the laughter. It wasn't the kind of laughter that came from joy or friendship. It was cruel, sharp-edged, designed to cut. Maya looked up from her book to see a group of students surrounding a girl at a nearby table. The girl was small, probably a freshman, with bright red hair and freckles that stood out starkly against her pale, frightened face. Her lunch tray had been knocked over, and apple juice dripped onto her white sneakers. "Oops," said a tall boy with perfectly styled blonde hair and a varsity jacket that screamed privilege. "Sorry, Carrot Top. Guess you should watch where you're sitting." His friends laughed on cue. There were 4 of them in total. The blonde boy who was clearly the leader, a stocky brunette with mean eyes, a lanky kid with expensive sneakers, and a girl with perfectly applied makeup who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. They formed a circle around the redhead, blocking her escape routes. "Please," the freshman whispered, her voice barely audible above the cafeteria noise. "I'll clean it up." "You bet you will," the leader said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "But first, maybe you should apologize properly. Get on your knees and say sorry like you mean it." Maya's grip tightened on her sandwich. Around the cafeteria, other students watched with a kind of fascination people reserve for car crashes. Some pulled out their phones, ready to document the humiliation. Others looked away, grateful it wasn't them. A few teachers supervised from across the room, but they were too far away to hear what was happening. The redhead's eyes filled with tears, but she slowly began to kneel. The humiliation was written across her face, a look Maya had seen too many times in her own mirror during her younger years. It was a look of someone who had learned that resistance only made things worse, that sometimes surrender was the only way to survive. Maya felt something stir in her chest. It was a familiar feeling, one she had spent months trying to suppress. Her master's voice echoed in her memory. "True strength protects the weak. True power serves others." But her mother's voice was louder. "No more fighting, Maya. Please. I can't handle another incident. She watched the freshmen's knees touch the dirty cafeteria floor, watched the bullies' grins widen, watched a dozen phones rise to capture the moment. And in that instant, Maya realized that some promises weren't meant to be kept. The leader was reaching for something in his backpack, probably planning to escalate the humiliation even further. When Maya stood up, her chair scraped against the floor, a sound that somehow cut through the cafeteria noise. Conversations paused. Heads turned. The bullies looked up to see a quiet girl with dark eyes walking toward them with purpose. "That's enough," Maya said, her voice calm but carrying a weight that made people stop and listen. The leader straightened up, sizing her up with the confidence of someone who had never encountered real resistance. "And you are someone who thinks you should find something better to do with your time," Maya replied, offering her hand to the kneeling freshman. "Come on, get up." The girl looked up at her with grateful, desperate eyes and took the offered hand. Maya helped her to her feet, noting how the freshman's whole body was shaking. The bullies formed a tighter circle, their body language shifting from playful cruelty to something more dangerous. "New girl thinks she's a hero," the leader said, and his friends chuckled. "That's cute, but you don't know how things work here yet. This doesn't concern you." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Actually, it does." The cafeteria had gone completely quiet now. Even the lunch workers had stopped what they were doing to watch. Maya could feel hundreds of eyes on her, could sense phones recording, could practically hear the gossip that would spread within minutes. But all she could really see was a frightened freshman beside her and the cool smirks of the four bullies. "Walk away," the leader said, his voice harder now. "While you still can." Maya's training kicked in automatically. She assessed the threats, calculated distances, noted escape routes and potential weapons. But more than that, she remembered every lesson about control, about discipline, about using minimum force. She had made a promise to her mother, and she intended to keep it. But that didn't mean she had to be a victim. "I'm not going anywhere," she said quietly. "And neither is she. Find someone else to pick on." The leader's fake smile disappeared entirely. "Wrong answer." He stepped toward her, his friends moving to flank her. The freshman whimpered and pressed closer to Maya's side. Around them, the cafeteria held his collective breath. Maya felt the familiar calm that came before action, the stillness that preceded the storm. She had tried to stay invisible, tried to keep her promise, tried to be normal. But sometimes, Maya realized normal wasn't enough. The tension in the cafeteria stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Maya could feel the weight of hundreds of stays, the collective intake of breath from students who sensed that something significant was about to happen. The freshman beside her trembled, but Maya's presence seemed to give her courage to remain standing rather than cowering. "Last chance. New girl," the leader said, his voice dropping to what he probably thought was an intimidating whisper. "Walk away, and we'll pretend this never happened." Maya glanced around the circle of bullies. Up close, she could see that they were all bigger than her, older, more confident in their power. The leader was probably 6 feet tall and built like he spent serious time in the gym. The stocky brunette looked like he'd been in plenty of fights. The lanky one had the nervous energy of someone looking forward to violence. Even the girl had a hardness in her eyes that suggested she could be just as cruel as the boys. But size and cruelty weren't everything. Maya had learned that lesson years ago in her first tournament when she'd faced an opponent who outweighed her by 40 pounds. Master Rodriguez had taught her that real fighting wasn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It was about timing, leverage, and understanding your opponent's weaknesses better than they understood your strengths. "I don't think so," Maya said, her voice steady and calm. "Find someone else to intimidate." The leader's face flushed red. He wasn't used to defiance, especially not from a girl who barely came up to his shoulder. "You have no idea who you're messing with." "Tyler Carson, varsity football, daddy's a lawyer, thinks he owns a school," Maya said matter-of-factly. "Did I miss anything?" The fact that she knew his name clearly surprised him. Maya had made it her business to learn about the power structures in every school she attended. It was survival 101 for someone who moved as often as she did. But Tyler recovered quickly, his surprise turning to anger. "Smart mouth," he sneered. "Let's see how smart you are when." He reached out to grab Maya's shoulder, probably planning to shove her or drag her somewhere more private. It was exactly the kind of move she'd expected from someone who relied on size and intimidation rather than skill. Maya reacted instinctively. She caught his wrist with her left hand, stepped slightly to the side, and used his own momentum to pull him off balance. At the same time, her right hand shot up, not to punch, but to create space between them. Tyler stumbled forward, suddenly finding himself overextended and vulnerable. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds, but the message was clear. Maya wasn't helpless. Tyler recovered his balance and spun around, his face now dark with embarrassment and rage. His friends had stopped smirking. Students around the cafeteria leaned forward, sensing that this was about to escalate far beyond typical lunchroom drama. "You think you're tough?" Tyler hissed. "Let's see how tough you are." He came at her again, this time with real intent. Maya could see it in his eyes. This wasn't about power anymore. It was about not being humiliated in front of the whole school. He swung a wild haymaker at her head, the kind of punch that would have knocked out most people if it connected. Maya ducked smoothly under the punch, stepped inside his guard, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. Not hard enough to cause serious damage, but hard enough to empty his lungs and drop him to one knee. As he gasped for air, she grabbed his wrist again and twisted it just enough to control his movement. "I said that's enough," she repeated, her voice still calm but now carrying an edge that made everyone in the cafeteria pay attention. The stocky brunette, apparently Tyler's best friend, decided to jump in. "Get off him, you psycho!" He charged at Maya from the side, probably thinking he could tackle her while she was focused on Tyler. It was a mistake. Maya released Tyler's wrist, pivoted on her right foot, and caught the charging boy with a perfectly timed hip toss. He flew through the air and landed hard on the cafeteria floor, sliding several feet before coming to a stop near an overturned chair. The lanky one and the girl backed up, suddenly realizing that their usual tactics of overwhelming single victims with numbers might not work against someone who actually knew how to fight. Around the cafeteria, students were on their feet now, some cheering, some recording, all watching in amazement as a quiet new girl systematically dismantled the school's most feared bullying crew. Tyler struggled to his feet, still wheezing but too proud to stay down. "What the hell are you?" "Someone who's tired of watching people get pushed around," Maya replied. She helped the freshman to her feet and positioned herself protectively between the girl and the bullies. "And someone who knows exactly how far she can go without crossing the line." It was true. Every move Maya had made was calculated for minimum damage and maximum effect. She hadn't thrown a single punch, hadn't used any techniques that could cause permanent injury. But she had demonstrated beyond any doubt that she was not someone to be trifled with. "This isn't over," Tyler wheezed, trying to salvage some dignity from the situation. "Yes, it is," Maya said firmly. "Because if I see you bothering anyone else, if I hear about you intimidating freshmen or making anyone's life miserable, we'll have another conversation. And next time, I won't be so gentle." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Tyler looked around at his friends, at the watching students, at the phone still recording. His empire of fear was crumbling in real time, broadcast to the entire school. The stocky boy was still groaning on the floor. The other two looked like they wanted to be anywhere else in the world. "Come on," Tyler finally muttered to his crew. "Let's get out of here." They helped their fallen friend to his feet and slouched away, trying to look tough but fooling no one. The cafeteria remained silent for another moment, and then exploded into conversation. Students rushed toward Maya and the freshmen, everyone talking at once, asking questions, taking pictures. That was incredible. "Did you see how far she moved? Tyler's never been taken down like that. Who is this girl?" Maya felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. This was exactly what she had been trying to avoid. She looked around for an escape route, but found herself surrounded by excited classmates. The freshman she had protected was still clinging to her arm, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Thank you," the girl whispered. "Thank you so much. I'm Emma, by the way. Emma Walsh." "Maya," she replied, then raised her voice to address the crowd. "Show's over. Everyone, go back to your lunch." But the crowd wasn't dispersing. If anything, more students were gathering, drawn by the commotion and the cell phone videos already being shared across social media. Maya could see teachers pushing through the crowd, finally arriving to investigate what had happened. Mrs. Henderson, the vice principal, appeared at Maya's elbow. "Ms. Chen, I need to see you in my office." "Now." Maya nodded, having expected this. "Emma, are you okay?" The freshman nodded vigorously. "I'm perfect. Thanks to you." As Maya followed Mrs. Henderson through the crowd, she could hear the whispers following her. "New girl just took down Tyler Carson and his whole crew. She didn't even break a sweat. Did you see those moves? She's like some kind of ninja. Tyler's going to be so pissed." Maya tried to push the voices out of her head, but she knew the damage was done. Her cover was blown, her invisibility shattered. By the end of the day, everyone in school would know her name. By tomorrow, the story would be exaggerated beyond recognition, and eventually, the attention would reach her mother. As they walked toward the administrative offices, Maya caught sight of her reflection in a window. She looked the same as always, quiet, unremarkable, forgettable. But she knew that after today, no one would ever see her that way again. The quiet girl who just wanted to graduate had become something else entirely. The question was, what happened next? The vice principal's office was a study in beige mediocrity, with motivational posters about respect and teamwork covering walls the color of weak coffee. Maya sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair across from Mrs. Henderson's desk, her hands folded calmly in her lap while the older woman shuffled through papers and tried to look stern. "Ms. Chen," Mrs. Henderson began, adjusting her glasses, "we have a zero-tolerance policy regarding violence at Westfield High." Maya nodded. "I understand. 3 students required medical attention after your altercation in the cafeteria. Tyler Carson was winded for approximately 2 minutes. Brandon Mills has a bruised shoulder from his fall. Marcus Webb and Chelsea Santos were uninjured because they didn't participate in the assault," Maya said matter-of-factly. "None of them required medical attention beyond an ice pack." Mrs. Henderson blinked, clearly not expecting such a precise account. "You seem remarkably well-informed about the extent of injuries you caused." "I'm remarkably well-trained in controlling the extent of injuries I cause," Maya corrected. "If I had wanted to hurt them, they would be in the hospital right now, not sitting in the nurse's office complaining about their bruised egos." The vice principal leaned back in her chair, studying Maya with new interest. "Who are you, Ms. Chen?" "Really?" It was a fair question. Maya's student file was thin, a series of transfers, solid grades, no disciplinary issues, no extracurricular activities. On paper, she was exactly what she appeared to be, a quiet girl who moved a lot and kept to herself. But files didn't tell the whole story. "I'm someone who was taught that strength should protect people, not hurt them," Maya said simply. "Emma Walsh was being humiliated and threatened. I stopped it by using martial arts techniques that could have seriously injured 4 students. By using the minimum force necessary to end the situation," Maya countered. "Mrs. Henderson, I've been training in combat sports for 6 years. If I had wanted to seriously injure those students, do you really think they would have walked away?" The vice principal was quiet for a moment, clearly wrestling with how to handle a situation that didn't fit neatly into her usual disciplinary categories. Maya could see security footage on her computer screen, frozen at the moment when Tyler first grabbed for her shoulder. The security cameras showed Mr. Carson initiating physical contact, Mrs. Henderson admitted, and witness statement confirmed that you were defending another student. "Then why am I here instead of in class?" "Because 3 hours ago, you were an unknown quantity. Now, half the school is posting videos of you on social media with captions like, 'Mystery fighter takes down school bullies.' The other half is speculating about what kind of training produces those skills. Parents are calling. The school board is asking questions." Maya's heart sank. This was exactly what she had been trying to avoid. "Mrs. Henderson, I just want to finish high school quietly. I don't want attention. I don't want fame. I just want to graduate and move on with my life." "I believe you," the vice principal said, "but wanting something and getting it are different things. Maya, what you did in that cafeteria was extraordinary. Students are calling you a hero. Teachers are impressed by your restraint and control. But you've also upset a very delicate balance. Before Maya could ask what she meant, there was a knock on the office door. Mrs. Henderson's secretary peeked in. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Carson is here to see you, with his lawyer." Maya's stomach dropped. Tyler's father was apparently making good on his reputation as someone who used legal intimidation to solve his son's problems. Mrs. Henderson sighed deeply. "Send them to conference room B. I'll be there in 5 minutes." She turned back to Maya. "This is what I was afraid of. The Carsons don't like it when Tyler faces consequences for his actions. They prefer to make the consequences someone else's problem." "What does that mean for me?" "It means you're about to learn that sometimes doing the right thing comes with a price." 10 minutes later, Maya found herself in a conference room with Mrs. Henderson, Tyler's father, a man who looked like an older, more expensive version of his son, and a lawyer who specialized in making problems disappear. Tyler himself sat in the corner, looking sullen and avoiding eye contact. "My client is prepared to file charges for assault and battery," the lawyer began without preamble, "as well as a civil suit for emotional distress and damage to my client's athletic scholarship prospects." Maya almost laughed. "Emotional distress? Your client was terrorizing a freshman girl. I stopped him from hurting someone." "You attacked 4 students without provocation," Mr. Carson interjected, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to getting his way. "My son tells me you used some kind of martial arts training to assault him and his friends." "Your son grabbed me first. I defended myself and protected another student from harassment." Maya kept her voice level, but inside she was seething. This was exactly the kind of entitled behavior that had created bullies like Tyler in the first place. The lawyer slid a folder across the table. "Security footage shows you initiated the physical altercation by grabbing Mr. Carson's wrist." "After he reached for my shoulder," Maya pointed out. "Self-defense law is pretty clear about the right to prevent unwanted physical contact." "Are you a lawyer, Ms. Chen?" the lawyer asked with a condescending smile. "No, but I've had to learn a lot about self-defense law over the years." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Comes with the territory when you're trained to fight." Mrs. Henderson looked between the two sides, clearly uncomfortable with the direction the conversation was taking. "Perhaps we can find a solution that doesn't involve lawyers and charges." "The solution is simple," Mr. Carson said. "This girl is expelled, and we all move on with our lives." "Over my dead body," a new voice said from the doorway. Maya turned to see her mother standing in the conference room entrance, still in her nursing scrubs but radiating the kind of protective fury that could move mountains. Sarah Chen was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but she filled the doorway with her presence. "Mom," Maya started, but Sarah held up a hand. "I got a call from the school," she said, walking into the room with purposeful strides. "Something about my daughter defending another student from bullies and now facing expulsion because the bully's daddy doesn't like consequences." Mr. Carson bristled. "Your daughter assaulted my son." "Your son tried to assault my daughter," Sarah replied without missing a beat. "And from what I heard, she showed remarkable restraint in not putting him in the hospital." The lawyer tried to interject, but Sarah wasn't finished. "Let me tell you gentlemen something about my daughter. Maya has been training in martial arts since she was 11 years old. She's won regional championships. She's sparred with professional fighters. If she had wanted to hurt your son, he would still be unconscious." Sarah's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Instead, she used minimum force to stop a situation where 4 older students were terrorizing a younger one. "That's irrelevant," the lawyer said. "The law doesn't distinguish between trained fighters and regular students when it comes to assault." Sarah smiled, and Maya recognized the expression. Her mother was about to drop a bombshell. "Actually, it does," Sarah said, pulling out her own folder. "Maya is a certified instructor in self-defense and conflict de-escalation. She's been working with victims of domestic violence and bullying for the past 2 years. Her techniques are specifically designed to subdue without causing permanent harm." Maya stared at her mother in surprise. She had no idea her mother had been keeping track of her training achievements or had assembled legal documentation about her qualifications. "Furthermore," Sarah continued, "I have statements from 12 students who witnessed the incident, all confirming that Maya acted only after Tyler initiated physical contact and only to protect another student." I also have Emma Walsh's parents on speed dial, and they are very interested in discussing their daughter's treatment at this school." The room fell silent. Mr. Carson and his lawyer exchanged glances, clearly not expecting organized resistance. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Mrs. Henderson cleared her throat. "Perhaps we can find a compromise that doesn't involve lawyers or expulsions." "What kind of compromise?" Maya asked. "Community service," Mrs. Henderson suggested. Maya could run self-defense workshops for students, teach conflict resolution, help create a safer school environment. Maya's mother looked at her daughter. "What do you think?" Maya considered the offer. It wasn't the invisibility she had wanted, but it wasn't expulsion either. And if she was going to be famous anyway, maybe she could use that attention for something positive. "I'll do it," she said, "on one condition." "What's that?" Mrs. Henderson asked. "Tyler and his friend participate in the first workshop. They learn what it feels like to be on the other side of intimidation." Tyler's father started to object, but the lawyer put a hand on his arm. They could see which way the wind was blowing. "Fine," Tyler muttered from his corner. "Whatever." As the meeting broke up, Maya's mother waited while the others filed out. When they were alone, Sarah hugged her daughter tightly. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Not for fighting, but for standing up for someone who couldn't stand up for herself." Maya hugged her back, feeling some of the tension leave her shoulders. "I thought you'd be angry." "I was. For about 5 minutes. Then I realized you did exactly what I raised you to do. You protected someone who needed protecting, and you did it with control and restraint." Sarah pulled back to look at her daughter. "But Maya, this changes everything. You can't go back to being invisible now." Maya nodded, looking out the conference room window at the school courtyard where students were already gathering, probably trading stories about the lunchroom incident. "I know," she said. "So what do I do now?" Sarah smiled. "Now you figure out what kind of person you want to be when everyone's watching." Word spread through Westfield High like wildfire in dry grass. By the next morning, Maya's locker was surrounded by curious students, her inbox flooded with friend requests, and her name was trending on every social media platform the school used. The quiet new girl had become the most famous student on campus overnight. But fame, Maya was learning, was a double-edged sword. "Maya, Maya." A sophomore with braces and eager eyes pushed through the crowd around her locker. "Is it true you know like 50 different ways to kill someone with your bare hands?" "No," Maya said patiently, pulling out her chemistry textbook. "And I'm not going to demonstrate any fighting techniques in the hallway." A senior football player shouldered his way forward. "My little brother goes to Jefferson Middle School. Their bullies are out of control. Could you maybe come over there and—" "I can't solve everyone's problems by fighting," Maya interrupted, closing her locker door with more force than necessary. "That's not how this works." The crowd parted reluctantly as she walked toward her first period class, but she could feel dozens of eyes following her every step. Some looked at her with admiration, others with curiosity, and a few with the kind of wariness usually reserved for wild animals in captivity. In AP Chemistry, her teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, no relation to her martial arts instructor, tried to maintain normal classroom decorum, but even he couldn't resist glancing at Maya when he discussed molecular reactions that could neutralize threatening compounds. The other students barely paid attention to the lesson, more interested in stealing glances at the girl who had taken down Tyler Carson and his crew. Emma Walsh was waiting outside Maya's second period classroom, clutching a handmade thank you card and looking nervous. "I wanted to give you this," she said, holding out the card with shaking hands, "and to tell you that what you did yesterday changed everything for me." Maya accepted the card, noting Emma's careful handwriting and the small drawing of 2 figures, one tall, one small, standing together. "You don't have to thank me, Emma. Anyone would have done the same thing." "No, they wouldn't have," Emma said firmly. "I've been getting picked on since freshman year started, and everyone just walks by. You were the first person to actually do something about it." As if summoned by the conversation, 3 more underclassmen appeared, all looking at Maya with a kind of desperate hope that made her stomach clench. "Is it true you're starting a self-defense program?" asked a boy who couldn't have been more than 14, his voice cracking with nervousness. Because we really need something like that, added a girl with glasses and a split lip that looked recent. Maya felt the weight of their expectations settling on her shoulders like a heavy coat. These kids weren't looking for a hero. They were looking for hope. The difference was important, but also terrifying. Mrs. Henderson and I are still working out the details, Maya said carefully. But yes, there's going to be a program. The relief on their faces was immediate and overwhelming. Maya excused herself and hurried to world history, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was making promises she wasn't sure she could keep. During lunch, Maya tried to find a quiet corner to eat in peace, but that proved impossible. Students approached her table in a steady stream, some wanting to thank her, others asking for advice, a few just wanting to be seen talking to the school's newest celebrity. She answered their questions as best she could, but each conversation made her more aware of how big this was becoming. "You realize you've started something you can't stop?" a voice said behind her. Maya turned to see Jessica Kim, the student council president and one of the few people in school who seemed immune to social hierarchies. Jessica was known for her sharp intelligence and her ability to see through people's pretenses. "What do you mean?" Maya asked, though she had a feeling she already knew. Jessica sat down across from her, pulling out a tablet loaded with social media feeds. "You want to see what you've unleashed." The screen showed dozens of posts from Westfield students, all variations on the same theme. Finally, someone stood up to Tyler and his crew. "New girl is a straight-up superhero. When's the first self-defense class? I'm signing up. My cousin goes to Roosevelt High and wants to know if Maya Chen does house calls." But it wasn't just local posts. The video of Maya's confrontation with Tyler had been shared hundreds of times, picked up by anti-bullying websites and teen advocacy groups. Comments ranged from admiring to concerned to completely over the top. "This is insane," Maya muttered, scrolling through message after message. "It gets better," Jessica said, swiping to a new screen. "Local news wants an interview. The school board is getting calls from parents asking about your program. And Tyler's dad hired a private investigator to dig into your background." Maya's blood ran cold. What did they find? "Nothing yet, but it's persistent. The good news is that public opinion is overwhelmingly on your side. Parents love that someone's finally addressing bullying head-on. Students are excited about learning self-defense. Even some teachers are asking if they can observe your classes." Maya put her head in her hands. This was spiraling beyond anything she had imagined. "Jessica, I just wanted to help one girl. I never meant for any of this to happen." "But it did happen," Jessica said gently. "And now you have a choice. You can try to disappear again, let all this attention die down, and go back to being invisible. Or you can use this platform to actually make a difference. What if I mess it up? What if I make things worse?" Jessica leaned forward, her expression serious. "Maya, I've been watching you for 2 days now. You've handled every conversation with patience and wisdom. You've deflected questions about violence and redirected people toward conflict resolution. You've made it clear that fighting is a last resort, not a first option. Do you know how rare that is?" Maya looked up, surprised by the assessment. "Most people who get famous for fighting either embrace the violence or run from the responsibility," Jessica continued. "You're doing neither. You're trying to use what happened as a teaching moment. That tells me you're exactly the right person for this job." That afternoon, Maya met with Mrs. Henderson and the school counselor, Ms. Park, to plan the self-defense program. What she expected to be a simple discussion about scheduling and space turned into something much larger. "We've had 4 to 7 students sign up as of this morning," Mrs. Henderson announced, "including Tyler Carson and his friends, as agreed." 4 to 7. Maya repeated, stunned. "And that's just the first day," Ms. Park added. "We've had calls from parents, inquiries from other schools, even a message from the district's anti-bullying coordinator. Maya, this program could be a model for the entire school system." Maya felt dizzy. "I'm 17 years old. I don't know how to run a program for an entire school system." "You don't have to," Mrs. Henderson assured her. "We'll provide support, resources, supervision. But we need you to be the face of it, the instructor, the person who can relate to these kids in a way that adults can't." Over the next 2 hours, they worked out the details. The program would meet 3 times a week after school. It would focus on conflict de-escalation, awareness, basic self-defense techniques, and building confidence. Maya would be the primary instructor, with assistance from the PE teachers and visit from local law enforcement and domestic violence counselors. There's one more thing, Mrs. Henderson said as they wrapped up. The local news station wants to do a story about the program. It would be good publicity and might help secure funding for expansion. Maya's first instinct was to refuse. She had never wanted to be on television, never wanted to be a public figure. But then she thought about Emma Walsh's grateful face, about the underclassmen who had approached her with hope in their eyes, about all the students who had signed up for classes. "Okay," she said finally, "but I have conditions." "Name them." "No sensationalism. This isn't about me being some kind of vigilante or superhero. It's about teaching kids to protect themselves and others. The focus should be on prevention, not fighting. And absolutely no demonstrations of actual combat techniques on camera." Mrs. Henderson nodded. "Agreed. Anything else?" Maya thought for a moment. "I want Emma Walsh to be interviewed too. And some of the other students who signed up. This story should be about them, not me." The first self-defense class was scheduled for Thursday after school in the gymnasium. Maya arrived an hour early to set up, her stomach churning with nervous energy. She had taught individual students before, had even run small workshops at her old martial arts school, but nothing on this scale. Master Rodriguez's voice echoed in her memory. "Teaching is not about showing how strong you are. It's about helping others find their own strength." Students began filtering in at 3:30, and Maya was amazed by the diversity of the group. There were freshmen like Emma, upperclassmen she recognized from AP classes, athletes, theater kids, band geeks, and students she had never seen before. Tyler Carson slouched in last, flanked by his usual crew, all of them wearing expressions that ranged from sullen to openly hostile. "All right, everyone," Maya called out, her voice carrying clearly across the gymnasium. "Let's form a circle and sit down on the mats." The students arranged themselves somewhat awkwardly, unsure of what to expect. Maya positioned herself so she could see everyone, noting the body language, the nervous fidgeting, the way some students instinctively stayed close to friends while others sat alone. "Before we start," she began, "I want to make something clear. This isn't Fight Club. We're not here to learn how to hurt people. We're here to learn how to protect ourselves and others, how to recognize dangerous situations before they escalate, and how to build the kind of confidence that makes you less likely to be targeted in the first place." A senior raised her hand. "But what if someone attacks you? What if talking doesn't work?" "Then you defend yourself with the minimum force necessary to escape safely," Maya replied. "The goal is always to get away, not to win a fight. Fighting should be your absolute last option, when there's no other choice." Tyler snorted softly, earning a sharp look from Maya. "Something to add, Tyler?" He shrugged, trying to look casual. "Just seems like a lot of talk for someone who put 3 guys on the ground in under 30 seconds. The gymnasium went dead quiet. Maya could feel dozens of eyes watching her, waiting to see how she would handle the challenge. This was the moment that would set the tone for everything that followed. "You're right," she said simply. "I did put 3 guys on the ground. Want to know why?" Tyler looked surprised by her directness. "Sure. Because I spent 4 years learning control before I learned techniques. I spent countless hours practicing de-escalation before anyone taught me submissions. I learned to assess situations, to read body language, to recognize when someone was actually dangerous versus when they were just trying to intimidate." Maya's voice remained calm, but her words carried weight. "The reason I was able to stop you without seriously hurting you is because I had the training and self-discipline to use exactly the right amount of force. No more, no less." She stood up and walked over to Tyler, offering her hand to help him to his feet. After a moment's hesitation, he took it. "Everyone pair up," she announced. "We're going to start with the most important self-defense skill there is, awareness." For the next hour, Maya led them through exercises in reading body language, recognizing aggressive postures, and understanding the difference between someone who was genuinely dangerous and someone who was just posturing. She had them practice confident walking, maintaining appropriate distance, and projecting calm authority without aggression. Predators look for easy targets. she explained as students practice walking with purpose across the gym. They want someone who looks distracted, isolated, or afraid. When you walk like you know where you're going and you're comfortable in your own skin, you become a less attractive target. Emma Walsh, who had started the class hunched over and nervous, was standing straighter by the end of the session. Several of the quieter students were making eye contact and speaking up when Maya asked questions. Even Tyler and his friends seemed engaged, despite their initial reluctance. As the class ended and students began to leave, Tyler approached Maya. "Look," he said, not quite meeting her eyes, "about the other day." "What about it?" "I was out of line. With Emma, I mean, and with you." He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "I've been thinking about what you said, about using strength to protect people instead of hurting them. That's not how I was raised to think about it." Maya studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity. Instead, she saw something unexpected, genuine confusion, as if he was questioning beliefs he had never examined before. "Strength isn't about making other people smaller," she said quietly. "It's about helping them become bigger." Tyler nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out." After he left, Emma Walsh lingered behind, helping Maya stack mats and put away equipment. "This was amazing," she said, her voice bright with excitement. "I feel like I can actually handle myself now. Not fighting, but just being in the world without being scared all the time." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that she hadn't experienced since her competitive days. This was different from winning tournaments or earning recognition. This was the satisfaction of watching someone discover their own strength. "Emma," she said, "how would you feel about helping me teach some of the younger classes? I think other students would respond well to hearing from someone their own age." Emma's eyes went wide. "Really? You'd want me to help?" "I think you'd be perfect for it." As they finished cleaning up, Maya reflected on how much had changed in just 1 week. She had gone from desperately trying to stay invisible to becoming the most visible student in school. She had broken her promise to avoid fighting, only to discover that teaching others not to fight might be more important than her mother's fears about headlines and attention. The news interview was scheduled for the following week, and Maya knew that once it aired, there would be no going back to anonymity. But watching Emma's transformation, seeing Tyler question his assumptions, witnessing 4 to 7 students discover their own capacity for strength and confidence, Maya realized that maybe going back wasn't the goal anymore. Maybe the goal was moving forward. 3 months after the cafeteria incident that changed everything, Maya stood in front of the packed school auditorium, looking out at an audience that would have terrified her just a few weeks earlier. The local news story about Westfield High's innovative anti-bullying program had gone viral, attracting attention from educators, parents, and students across the state. Now Maya found herself addressing a conference of school administrators, all eager to learn about a program that had transformed not just individual students, but an entire school culture. "When I first moved to Westfield," Maya began, her voice steady despite the bright television lights, "I thought strength meant being invisible. I thought if I could just keep my head down and avoid conflict, I could protect myself and my family from the kind of attention we'd experienced before." In the front row, her mother sat beaming with pride. Next to her, Emma Walsh, now Maya's co-instructor and the program student coordinator, gave her an encouraging thumbs up. Even Tyler Carson was there, wearing a Westfield Warriors Against Bullying t-shirt and taking notes for the presentation he would give later about reformed Bullies as program advocates. "But I learned something important that day in the cafeteria," Maya continued. "Real strength isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about having the courage to stand up when someone needs you to stand up, the wisdom to know when fighting is necessary, and the self-control to use only as much force as the situation requires." The audience, a mix of principals, school board members, parents, and student representatives from dozens of schools, listened intently. Maya had given this speech a dozen times now, but it never got easier. She still preferred working directly with students to addressing crowds of adults, but she had learned that creating change sometimes required stepping outside your comfort zone. "The Westfield model isn't complicated," she explained, clicking to the next slide in her presentation. "We focus on 4 core principles: awareness, de-escalation, confidence building, and community responsibility. Students learn to recognize threatening situations before they become dangerous, to diffuse conflicts through communication, to carry themselves with a kind of confidence that deterrs attackers, and to look out for each other. A principal from a neighboring district raised her hand. Ms. Chen, what about parents who worry that self-defense training might encourage violence? It was a question Maya had heard many times, and she had a ready answer. In 6 months of operation, disciplinary incidents at Westfield have decreased by 60%. Student reports of bullying are down 75%. But more importantly, students are resolving conflicts through communication rather than confrontation. We're not teaching them to fight. We're teaching them not to need to fight. Another hand went up. What about students who come to the program with violent tendencies? How do you handle potential bullies like Tyler Carson? Maya glanced at Tyler, who had volunteered to be part of these presentations despite the personal embarrassment it caused him. Tyler, would you like to answer that? Tyler stood up, his face slightly red but his voice clear. Before this program, I thought being strong meant making other people afraid of me. I used intimidation because I didn't know any other way to feel powerful. Maya didn't just teach me better fighting techniques. She taught me better ways to think about strength itself. He paused, looking around the auditorium. The program doesn't just reform bullies. It teaches potential victims to project confidence, bystanders to intervene safely, and people like me that there are better ways to be strong than making others weak. The audience murmured appreciatively, and Maya felt a surge of pride in how far Tyler had come. It hadn't been easy. Changing a lifetime of learned behaviors never was, but he had committed to the work with surprising dedication. After the formal presentation, Maya found herself surrounded by educators wanting to discuss implementation details, funding strategies, and timeline questions. The Westfield model was being adopted by 12 schools in the pilot program, with plans for expansion if the results continued to be positive. The key, Maya explained to a group of middle school principals, is making sure the program belongs to the students, not the administration. They have to feel ownership of it, or it becomes just another set of rules imposed by adults. Dr. Martinez, the district superintendent who had become one of the program's biggest advocates, joined the conversation. Maya, I have some exciting news. The State Department of Education wants to fund a comprehensive study of the Westfield model. If the results are as positive as we expect, they're talking about implementing it statewide. Maya felt a familiar mix of excitement and anxiety. Each expansion brought new opportunities to help students, but it also brought more pressure, more attention, more ways things could go wrong. There's something else, Dr. Martinez continued. The University of Michigan has offered you a full scholarship to study criminology and conflict resolution. They want you to design a research program around youth violence prevention. Maya's eyes widened. She had been planning to attend community college to save money, then transfer to a state school. The idea of studying at a prestigious university, of turning her experiences into academic research that could help even more students, was overwhelming. I need to think about it, she managed. Later that evening, Maya walked through the empty halls of Westfield High, something she had taken to doing when she needed to think. The school felt different now, not just to her, but to everyone. The hallways that had once echoed with cruel laughter now rang with genuine conversation. Students who had spent years avoiding eye contact now greeted each other openly. The culture had shifted in ways that went far beyond any single program. She found Emma in the gym, working with a group of 8th graders from the local middle school. The weekly Future Freshman sessions had been Emma's idea, a way to help incoming students build confidence before they face the challenges of high school. Okay, remember, Emma was saying to a nervous-looking girl, you don't have to look threatening. You just have to look like you belong here and you know where you're going. Maya watched from the doorway as Emma guided the girl through the same exercises Maya had taught her months earlier. The transformation was remarkable, not just in Emma's confidence and teaching ability, but in the ripple effect she was creating with younger students. How did it go? Emma asked when she noticed Maya watching. Good. Overwhelming, but good. Maya helped the middle schoolers pack up their equipment. Emma, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever wish I had just walked away that day in the cafeteria? That none of this had ever happened. Emma looked at her in genuine surprise. Are you kidding? Maya, that day changed my entire life. Not just because you saved me from Tyler, but because you showed me what it looked like to stand up for someone else. Before that, I thought being small meant being helpless. Now I know it just means I have to be smarter and braver." As they walked out to the parking lot together, Emma continued, "Besides, look what you've built here. The program has helped hundreds of students. Tyler and his friends have completely changed how they think about power. The whole school feels safer. Kids from other schools are learning these techniques. You might literally save lives, Maya." Maya nodded, but something still nagged at her. What if I'm not ready for all this responsibility? What if I make a mistake that hurts someone? Emma stopped walking and turned to face her. "Maya, you know what you told me on my worst day, when I was crying in the bathroom because I thought Tyler was going to make my life hell forever?" Maya shook her head. "You said that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing the right thing anyway." Emma smiled. "So be scared, but keep doing the right thing." 6 months later, Maya stood on the stage at Westfield High's graduation ceremony, wearing her cap and gown and looking out at a sea of familiar faces. Her mother sat in the front row, tears streaming down her cheeks. Mrs. Henderson beamed from the faculty section. Emma, Tyler, and dozens of students from the self-defense program cheered from the student section. As valedictorian, Maya had been asked to give a speech. She had written and rewritten it a dozen times, struggling to find words that captured everything she had learned, everything that had changed, everything that was still changing. "When I first arrived at Westfield," she began, "I thought the best way to protect myself was to be invisible. I thought if no one noticed me, no one could hurt me. But I learned something important here. Invisibility isn't protection. It's just another form of hiding." She paused, looking out at the faces of classmates who had become friends, former enemies who had become allies, and teachers who had become mentors. Real protection comes from building communities where everyone looks out for everyone else. It comes from teaching people to recognize their own strength and use it to help others find theirs. It comes from understanding that we're all safer when we're all stronger. Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. "The program we built here isn't really about self-defense. It's about creating a culture where bullying becomes impossible because every student has the confidence to stand up, the skills to de-escalate conflicts, and the knowledge that they don't have to face their problems alone." In the audience, she could see representatives from the 12 schools that had already adopted the Westfield model, as well as reporters covering the graduation of the student whose anti-bullying program had gained national attention. The Michigan Scholarship was waiting for her, along with offers from other universities and organizations that wanted to study and replicate what she had built. "I came to Westfield trying to hide from my past," Maya concluded. "But what I found here taught me that the past doesn't define us. How we choose to use our experiences does. Every challenge we face, every skill we develop, every moment of courage we find can become a gift we give to others." She looked directly at Emma, who was openly crying now, and at Tyler, who was applauding with genuine enthusiasm. "So to my fellow graduates, don't hide from who you are. Don't run from your strength. Use it to build something better, something that makes the world a little safer for everyone who comes after us." As Maya left the stage to thunderous applause, she realized that the girl who had once desperately wanted to be invisible had become someone who couldn't imagine hiding anymore. The quiet storm had found her voice, and she was just getting started. The future was full of possibilities, university research, program expansions, new schools to transform, more students to empower. But for now, Maya was content to walk across that stage knowing she had kept the promise that mattered most. Not the one she had made to her mother about staying invisible, but the one she had made to herself about using her strength to protect others. Some promises were meant to be broken. Others were meant to change everything. The end.